Divinia. I'm currently an executive coach, but I used to, a long time ago, when I was operating, I was the chief operating officer of both Mind Candy, which was the company behind Moshi Monsters, and also for Packed Coffee for a shorter period of time. And before that, I had a whole career in antiques and interior design. So my first career was operations in antiques and interior design, and then I went into sort of more technology, subscription-based businesses. And my COO role, because they're all different and they're all different shades, was looking after finance, people, talent, business operations, and really being the partner to the CEO, both at Mind Candy and at Pact, and the other entrepreneurs that I worked with when I was in sort of my previous career, to really understand how to properly operate those businesses strategically and commercially. When I was in my antiques and interior design days, I once met Madonna, and that was kind of both fascinating because I was really into Madonna when I was younger, but also very, very scary because I was about 20 something, and she walked into the showroom on the Pimlico Road, and she was a client of the guy that I used to work with. So she used to buy antiques and sort of interior design pieces from him. And it was just the most random thing, like a limo drew up outside. The Pimlico Road's lovely anyway, so you know, you quite often get celebrities along there. She got out the car, and I was like, I wonder who this is now. And my boss wasn't there at the time either, and she kind of stepped in, and then I was like, oh no, I'm the only person here, and it's Donna, oh no. And she came in, and I took her around, and I showed her everything, and I was really, really terrified. I studied, randomly, I studied archaeology at university, and I loved it, and I was really into sort of old stuff. And when I was a kid, I used to go around old stately homes with my parents, because we had mainly UK holidays, because we'd always go on holiday with my grandparents. That's kind of like where that whole thing started. And so when I left uni and I'd been on some digs and stuff, I realised I didn't really want to do that, and that actually archaeologists, they don't earn very much, and you sort of travel everywhere, get very dirty, you don't ever find very much. That's the other bit that nobody ever learns. You know, Time Team is like this amazing thing, and they dig up all these coins, but actually it's not like that at all. You just get muddy and don't find very much usually. And so I decided that actually I didn't want to go into archaeology wholesale. So I ended up working in antiques, and I worked in Chancery Lane in the London Silver Vaults, which is 2 flights underground. And so it's the weirdest thing, because when you go and work there, you're like a little mole. You go in very early in the morning, largely when it's dark, and then you come out again when it's dark. It's really weird. But it's such a beautiful place. It's kind of, it used to be a bank vault in years gone by. And then through the war, lots of people stored their silverware there, like aristocrats and so on. And then it became a place where silverware was traded from. So now it's got all of these little units that are filled with antique silverware. It's worth visiting anyway. And I ran with the owner of one of these units, a sort of a silverware retail unit. It's just amazing. And he was like this former salesman from ICI and just could sell anything to anyone. And taught me a lot about sales and antiques. And these businesses are fascinating because also they're like, you know, proper in turnover in the millions. I mean, they actually, because they usually have quite a good client list and so on, even though their, you know, footprint is quite small. But it was fascinating and really interesting. So I was there for about a year and a bit, and then I went to Pimlico Road to work in antique furniture, and a guy who was a designer by trade and then designed his own furniture, and we had it made, and he had again a very good client list. We worked with sort of commercial and interior designs, all these really lovely houses, but also commercial projects, and with all of the really good interior designers like Colfax and Fowler and Milnarek and Chester Jones and so on. It was just wonderful. It's just the most amazing thing. And if you think sort of like the startup tech ecosystem is kind of weird and small, the London antique scene is weird and small. With loads of eccentric characters and just amazing people, and of course lots of celebrities and that sort of thing. So it's just, the whole thing was amazing. And then I decided, after a few kind of goes round of talking to the guy I worked for about how we should have a website, and him going, ugh, website, no. I thought to myself, I think I need to go and work in a more digital business. And so I saw a coded ad in The Guardian for a digital company called Mind Candy, and ended up going to Mind Candy. And my first sort of role there was the EA to the CEO, did all of the bookkeeping, all of the sort of people talenty stuff and all of the office management. And the company was 15 people when I first joined. We were in an office by Cement Works in Battersea, and it was wonderful. It was like the really, really early days of a startup. The first project that we worked on, Perplexity, didn't work, so we then had to pivot into Moshi Monsters. Lots of people left, included the other founders, so the founder became sole founder at that point. And then we rebuilt the team around Moshi Monsters and ended up doing that. And I just had a wild ride for like the 10 years that I was there, and went from being all of that collection of things to being head of ops and finance, to then being the COO and the CFO, to then in the last year of my tenure being president, CEO, whilst the CEO founder transitioned out. And then we brought in a new CEO to run it. Then I went off to Pact, my couple of years there, and that was really working out with the founder how to make that business grow and work really effectively, which I loved. And of course, who doesn't love really lovely coffee? And that was also a really, really high point of that whole journey. And then similarly, I did a bit of interim CEO work there when he was off on paternity leave, and actually he decided to leave at the end of that journey as well, and so we brought in a CEO to run that business. And then I left, and during that period of time I'd trained to become a coach, and then left, and that's where I sort of transitioned. Yeah, so the COO to coach thing was driven by a number of things. So I'd bumped into coaching sort of previously, but really at Pact, the CEO's coach rather, was an amazing guy called Colin who did a bit of coaching work with us, and I realised that all of the personal development work that I'd done with people over the years, whilst I loved it, was driven from a sort of company's agenda perspective. So the company was driving their performance towards something that it wanted from them. And my realization with coaching was just that it was self-development on steroids. It was like, okay, who is this person? Where are they trying to get to with their life, with their work? How is it all joined together? And how can that coach really encourage them to help them to get there? So really driven from their agenda, really just what a privilege to go on the coaching journey. And also coupled with the fact that I had been operating for a long time. Like there was something about when we were in our house in London, people who lived next door to us. This is when I was at Mind Candy, and my husband, I think he may have left Mind Candy at that point, because that's why I met him, to go and do to found a different startup. Our next door neighbours were like, is this your second home? It's like, no, we'd actually live it. But we just worked for, we worked really long hours, and we had children and just wanting to spend a bit more time with them. And so it kind of both coincided with having small children and wanting a bit more flexibility, and also the fact that we've both been on a really sort of hefty startup journey for a really long period of time. So wanting to be on the other side of the table. And I also, I did a lot of board work as well, I still do. I'm an angel investor, so there's kind of lots of other ways of sort of helping from the other side of the table too, not just the coaching thing. And it's funny because when I first became COO, it was a typical day was very, still very operational, still me trying to figure out how I could abstract myself in order to get more time to actually sort of be a bigger COO. And I think this is the problem. A lot of COOs find this when they first sort of get into the role, how you then create the infrastructure around you to really, really make the best of that role. And what I mean by the best of that role is, and the reason I'm so passionate about coaching COOs as well is that that role can be amazing and impactful and brilliant. It's like the second to the CEO. I mean, what an amazing place to be. Or if if the COO can't scale or can't develop the relationship with the CEO, or the remit doesn't allow, they end up getting squashed either down or sideways. And it's a real shame if that happens. So how do you spend most of your time really pushing yourself into that big role? And latterly, I'm really sort of happy that I managed to do that. So I really managed to make myself a lot redundant from the operations of the business in order that I really could be that partner to the CEO. So I had some amazing lieutenants. So during that period of time, just definitely recruiting people who could come in and really help me run those functional areas I looked after. And somewhere in between, I mean, at Mind Candy, I ran loads of different departments as COO as well. So I ran tech for a bit, I ran product for a bit, I'm sure I did marketing for a bit as well. And jumping from fire to fire and gap to gap and all of that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of that. But yeah, so from early days when it was very busy and hands-on and operational to latter days when I could actually have the time to sit with the CEO and the board and the investors and the leadership team and really figure out what we could do with it. I run a COO community. Within the COO community, there are a vast array of amazing COOs, and all of their roles are different. I don't think I have found two that have the same role, and largely because, you know, functionally they can, you know, you can run whichever area. So functional skills depends on your area. Where are your spikes? It could be that it's kind of you're more of a sales commercial COO. It could be that you're more of a like a people-y, finance-y, opsy. Or, you know, it could be that you're more of a product techie and you end up sort of like looking after more of that sort of engine room piece of the business. So really sort of where are you functionally? And then I think, you know, for that big COO role, being able to be highly strategic, being able to be very commercial in your decision making, highly relational, both with the CEO but other stakeholders, investor, board, all team members across the business, coaching, being able to understand other people's pain, being able to kind of really empathise with them, and develop the people that work in the business. I think patience, like such a high level of patience. People used to say to me all the time, "You're so calm no matter what happens. Like the building could be burning down and you're still really level." And I wasn't, but I could project calm because I felt that if I didn't, that it would just encourage other people to everyone to become flat, versus, okay, if we take a step back and we're all together in this, how do we together solve the problem? Then it kind of worked really, really well. I think the other thing, and I think this is the same with any leadership role, but being able to flex different leadership styles. So when needed, you can be more coaching, you can be more authoritative, you can be more sort of democratic. You can really sort of flex different leadership styles in different situations. That there are so many ways that you can support yourself and in order that you can have the best possible COO experience. So things like coaching, COO peers, so COO communities, so mine obviously, which is wonderful, myself, but there are other COO communities as well, so joining a COO community that suits you. Mentoring as well. I had a financial mentor when I was coming up through my career, and that really helped me when I was kind of learning that side of the business. So mentors in different guises. But also I was so lucky because I really partnered with the CEOs I worked with, and they mentored me. And they gave me a lot of support and help and advocacy that I needed, and put me on the board, and, you know, so developing that relationship with the CEO as well, I think is really key. And remembering that, you know, this is the big role, the impactful big role, and you can really step into that, or you can decide not to. But if you decide not to, it's sort of, you're giving away some big power.